First Coast Math Clinic with Lesson 13, Literal Equations, from Unit 2, Equations and Expressions, from our Pre-algebra and Algebra curriculum. So the goal of this video is to solve literal equations for a given variable. And a literal equation is an equation with multiple variables. So for example, a literal equation is something like this: 2x plus 3y equals 9, or 4ab plus c equals 3, or a formula a equals b times h divided by 2. So you may remember this as the formula for area of a triangle. We'll do a couple examples involving area formulas or specific formulas, solving literal equations. Examples that are not literal equations, things like 3y equals 9 or x divided by 3 equals 12. You notice we only have one variable and one variable here. We're going to get into a very specific method I like to use to solve literal equations for specific variables, because it can be kind of conceptually challenging to isolate a specific variable, because we're going to be isolating, like maybe getting that y by itself and moving everything that's not y from one side to the next, or maybe getting this b by itself and moving everything that's not b to the opposite side. And that kind of can be a little bit conceptually difficult. So we're going to go over a method I like to use to do that. So let's get into some examples. All right, so the first example is 8 equals 2x plus y, and our goal is to isolate x. So we want to get this x by itself, and everything that's not x, we want to move from this right side to the left side. Now, if we think of a kind of a dividing line at that equal sign, we've got the left side and we've got the right side of the equal sign, right? So everything that's not x, so we've got x here. We basically want to move everything that's not x, the 2 and the y, from the left side to the right side. So again, like I said, that can be kind of conceptually difficult in how to do that. So here's the way I like to do this. I like to do this by listing out the build and the undo. So our build is basically how, kind of following our order of operations, how we create that right side of our equation following our order of operations. So if I were to substitute a value in for x, what's the first thing I would do with that value? Well, I've got multiplication by 2 and I've got adding y. What's the first thing I would do? Well, I would multiply by 2. And then I would add y. To undo this, let's start with going in reverse. I want to undo that adding y. Well, how do I undo adding y? Let's subtract y. All right, so I'm going to start by subtracting y, minus y, and minus y from both sides. So the y's on the right cancel out and cancel out. On the left side, I get 8 minus y equals 2x. All right, 8 and the y aren't like terms, so I can't actually subtract them. I can just list it 8 minus y. So I undid adding y. Now I've got multiplying by 2. I can undo multiplying by 2. To undo multiplying by 2, I can divide by 2. So let's divide the right side and the left side by 2. So 2's cancel out on the right. And then I could divide each of these terms. 8 divided by 2 minus y over 2. And we could simplify this. 8 over 2 gives us 4 minus y over 2 equals x. And we've successfully isolated x, gotten every term that's not x from the right side over to the left side. And when we list out the build and the undo, it basically tells us what we have to do and the order that we have to do it, right? So we listed our order of operations, multiplied by 2, add y, and then reverse that, subtract y, divide by 2, and that gives us the steps to get this x by itself, okay? All right, let's go through a couple more examples involving literal equations and isolating variables. All right, number 2, similar to the previous example, right, we want to get the x by itself. I've got 2x plus 3y equals 9. So our build, what are we doing with the x? If I substitute a value in for x, well, first thing I'd do, multiply by 2. Then I would add the 3y. So my undo, how do I undo adding 3y? Well, let's subtract 3y. So let's start there. So minus 3y. Minus 3y, because remember I want to get the x by itself and move everything that's on, or this is our left side, everything that's on the left side that is not x from the left side to the right side. Okay? So my 3y's cancel out, and I'm left with 2x equals 9 minus 3y. Remember, I can't actually subtract 9 and 3y because they're not like terms. Now, I want to undo multiplying by 2. Well, how do I undo multiplying by 2? Let's divide by 2. So let's divide by 2 on the left and the right. 2's cancel out on the left. On the right, I'm going to break this up. So I've got 9 divided by 2 minus 3 divided by 2 times y. And we've got our equation, our literal equation, isolated for x, and moved everything that is not x from the left side to the right side. So this is going to be our answer. Let's get into a few more examples. So number 3, we have the formula for area of a triangle. So area equals base times height divided by 2. So our build, and we want to isolate the height now, h. Well, if we substitute a value in for h, what's the first thing we're going to do? We're going to multiply by b. And we're going to divide by 2. So our undo, well, let's undo dividing by 2. And multiply by 2. So let's multiply the right side and the left side by 2 and 2. So the 2's cancel out on the right. So I get 2a equals b times h. My next step, let's undo multiplying by b. And divide by b. So divide by b, divide by b. So b cancels out on the right side. We're left with h equals 2 over a divided by b. And again, our build and undo basically gave us the steps we have to follow to do this process. We isolated h, we got the height by itself. We moved all of our terms from the right side to the left side other than the height. So we rewrote our literal equation and solved it for h. All right, let's do one more example. So here we've got 2 times y divided by x plus 3 equals z. We want to isolate that y. So we want to get that y by itself. So what's happening to the y? So if I put a value in for y, first thing we're going to do, multiply by 2, divide by x, and then we're going to add 3, right? We're following our order of operations. We'd multiply first, divide by x, and then we would add the 3 because we're going to multiply and divide before we would add. So our undo, let's reverse this. So let's undo adding 3 first and subtract 3. So minus 3, minus 3. 3's cancel out on the left. I get 2y over x equals z minus 3. Number 2, let's undo dividing by x. Well, how do we undo dividing by x? Multiply by x. So times x and times x. So the x's, I have x in the numerator and denominator here, so the x's cancel out. So I get 2y equals z minus 3 times x, right? So we took care of step 3, took care of step 2. Last one, multiplying by 2. How do we undo multiplying by 2? Let's divide by 2. So I'm going to divide everything on the left side, everything on the right side by 2. So 2's cancel out on the left. And I get z minus 3 times x over 2. So this is my literal equation where we isolate that y, move everything that's not y from the left side to the right side. All right, this was lesson 13 for unit 2, equations and expressions, literal equations with a literal equation focus. So we went through how to isolate a variable in a literal equation using build and undo. And if you like this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. First Coast Math Clinic.